Hey everyone, it's Don. In this episode of The Naturalist, I'm going to hike the Benoit Loop Trail at Clear Creek Metro Park in Fairfield County, Ohio. So let's go. This trail starts with a concrete bridge across Clear Creek. This is Clear Creek. Flows through a nice gorge here at Clear Creek Metro Park, lined by hemlocks and rhododendrons and several rare species for Ohio. And moreover, this creek is one of the only creeks that will harbor trout, that the state stocks with trout. So you can catch brown trout in this stream, along with bass, things like smallmouth bass and rock bass and so forth. But it's quite nice, and I've seen fishermen throughout the year here. I did an episode here about 2 years ago on New Year's Eve, and a guy came out of this valley with some trout. He caught on New Year's Eve in this valley, on this creek. So it's pretty nice, pretty clear water today. We've had some rain, but it's pretty clear. But the trail goes that way ostensibly. I'm getting mugged by some type of non-biting fly, irritating but not biting at least. So let's cross the creek and head up the trail and see where it goes. As you head inward, you cross through the riparian area of Clear Creek, and we're approaching another little tributary of Clear Creek. I don't know if this has a name or not, but joining us are tiger swallowtails getting active. There's some more. Hopefully you can see these. These things are often found flitting above streams in wooded areas. I think it's where they go to find mates and so forth. They'll also drop down and do what's called puddling in the mud along the stream bank to get minerals. I don't see that happening right here, but there are several just traversing up and down this little tributary. Now you can see that this is another little concrete or asphalt topped bridge. So this was a road at one point, because this land where we're hiking was once private property before it was incorporated into the Metro Park. And in fact, the trail to the Lake Emily, it's been relatively recently developed. It wasn't open to the public for a long time, but it is now. And this is my first walk into this area, so let's keep going. We're now proceeding up this tributary a little bit with the swallowtails, and I see a little mowed spot here. I don't know what that corresponds to, but I'll just keep this running to see if there's some sort of artifact here. And it doesn't appear so. Just a turnaround point for the mowers, I guess, so they mow a little spot. Could be for programming. All right, and there's kind of an open prairie or meadow area out in front of us. But we're going to proceed up into the woods and see what that looks like. Well, after a short rise, you encounter this cabin, clearly defunct. This whole area had been logged probably in the early 1900s, 20s to 30s. But sometimes around dwellings, this is not that old, but there would be trees that were not logged. So there are some trees here that certainly predate that. Some really nice big oak trees. Looks like red oaks and possibly black oaks, as well as some other things. There's a big tulip tree to my right up here. All right, so there'll be big trees interspersed here and there. And here's our map. The hike we're taking today, this is where we crossed Clear Creek. We're going to hike up to Lake Emily, just basically do a loop. We're going to see some old ruins of a house that used to overlook Lake Emily when it was in private hands, and make our way back. Well, I just happened to be glancing to my left as I walked up the trail. I had to step off the trail a few feet to get this, but this is a pink lady slipper. It's an orchid. That one's in pretty nice shape still. Here's one a little past. And then this plant on the ground is another orchid. That's called rattlesnake plantain. That's not flowering right now, obviously, but these two things were perched on a little ledge here, maybe kind of hidden from deer a little bit, and I'm glad I just happened to be looking in the right place. I've emerged from the lower land up into the upland here, and so I'm starting to lose the hemlocks, which are more common down low, and I'm gaining things like chestnut oaks, which are an indicator of dry upland ridges in the Appalachian Mountains or region. And I'm seeing a lot of those chestnut oaks, but still lots of white oaks and red oaks and black oaks, tulip trees. One thing I'm really noticing is a lot of young oak trees, a lot of good oak tree regeneration. You know, this is chestnut oak right here. Okay, this looks like to be northern red oak or black oak right here. All right, there's lots of regeneration of hickories. There's even young ash trees in here, even though they may not have a future. Here's a plant called maple leaf viburnum. I think you can see why you get the maple leaf idea. But good oak regeneration like this is a sign that deer pressure, deer browsing is not too bad here at Clear Creek. Now this could be highly localized, it could be worse somewhere else where they tend to hang out and congregate. But there's sure a lot of young oak regeneration in this area. That's a good sign, because those things are struggling in this state and throughout the Appalachians. Let's keep going. Here's a remnant of eastern tent caterpillars on their favorite host plant, black cherry. And these things often get misnamed as webworms. Webworms happen in the fall. They place their web-like nest out toward the end of branches, where tent caterpillars place their web, their tent, at the crooks of branches. And they feed in the spring, so these ones have already done their job and have pupated already and are gone. So that's the eastern tent caterpillar on black cherry, one of their favorite hosts. Well, I think I've reached also the high point on this trail. I've been going uphill for about 10 minutes now. That's why I'm kind of out of breath. A nice stand of tulip trees here. It's just a beautiful woodland. Pignut hickories, chestnut oaks, really nice. Red maples. All right, so let's just keep on going. And eventually this will turn and head back downhill, and the lake will be down in that region once we get down there. I'm always looking for the unique on these walks, so here's something that sticks out. This is a pitch pine. Pretty tall, trying to hang in there with the deciduous trees around it. But this is a remnant of when this forest would have been much more open. I see a smaller one behind where these things could get a foothold, but they eventually get out competed by deciduous trees in time. So I reached the high point up the right-hand side of this trail, and I'm gonna make this hairpin loop and head down to the lake, Lake Emily, and see what's there. And I'm also noticing, I walked through a patch of several pines, including white pine. I already showed you pitch pine. And here's Virginia pine. Here's kind of a scraggly looking one. Lots of dead branches, short twisted needles, 2 per bundle. So Clear Creek is known for their evergreens, broadleaf and coniferous, and I did an episode on that, including hemlocks, shortleaf pine, pitch pine, Virginia pine, holly, rhododendron, and mountain laurel. And so here's just that Virginia pine example. Just below it I see a big white oak too. That's a hefty tree. I'm not going to go try to measure that or anything, but that's about a 3.5 foot diameter tree, probably 250 to 300 years old. So that one escaped for some reason. All right, so let's continue down to Lake Emily, see what else we see on the way. behind me here is another sign. So let me just show you where we are. So here's the map. Again, we started over here. We hiked the upland, made that hairpin loop, and I've hiked downhill to this point. And now we're going to take a little loop over to what's called the Green Mansions Trail. Right? That's where the house was built when this was private property. I think it's just ruins now. And then we'll come back here and hike down to see the lake itself, across the dam, I believe, and then hike the trail back to where we started. So, on to Green Mansions. On my way to Green Mansions, just wanted to show you this hemlock stand and how hemlock, a healthy hemlock stand, essentially maintains its position. And that is by being so heavily shading to the understory, virtually nothing will grow underneath a dense hemlock stand. Obviously there's some bigger trees that are poking out the top of this, oaks in particular, but nothing else can get started under that stand while those hemlocks are there and healthy. Now this area is being threatened by hemlock woolly adelgid. I haven't seen them on the hemlocks here at all, which is good, but that's really telling there. The darkness, the dampness, the coolness, all of that helps maintain hemlock as the dominant in that spot. Here's a little kind of a vernal pond I see, and there's kind of a rock shelter at the head of it. These little hollows here are like what you'd call coves in the southeastern US. Hollows that are known for their biodiversity. They kind of terminate often with a perpendicular ridge, which is the case here eventually. And so there's kind of that appearance here. So we're about halfway to Green Mansions, and I'll check back with you once we get there. That's not Stonehenge behind me, but it is a ruin. So let's take a look at what this is and hear about its history. And before we even get started, this ruin has been refurbished and rebuilt from what was here for many years. So this is the ruins of a mansion that the Benoit family built in this area. So this is what the footprint, or what the mansion looked like into the 60s and 70s perhaps. I don't know how long they lasted here, but they had built this house in the 60s, various stages of construction and so forth shown here in this sign. And they purchased and they owned about 200 some acres in this area. And you know, they basically used it as a private retreat. They were very active in conservation, however, added more property to their land, and really were essential in this, you know, the preservation of the Clear Creek Valley. In fact, at some point, the valley where Clear Creek runs was threatened with a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dam, flood control dam. And you know, once that happens, that basically removes that whole valley and gorge element that Clear Creek is known for. So these are limestone stones. I guess they were refurbished, repointed. There is some sandstone here too, some sandstone blocks I've seen. It must have been part of a foundation or part of the stairs or something. So this stuff here is sandstone. Of course, this was hand-carved stuff here. You see this all throughout Hocking and Fairfield counties. We're kind of bridging Hocking and Fairfield County here. And this would be just, you know, what would have been the lawn, I suppose. It might have been graded more after they came to reconstruct this. But this is what remains of Green Mansion, the Benoit family. And in this area, I can see remnants of things that they planted here that really don't belong. Most of the walk was rich with native vegetation, other than some invasive shrubs here and there. But there's a southern magnolia, for example, so that's not native. It's kind of has some winter burn, but it's pretty big. Here again this is limestone, and then this is sandstone, black hand sandstone. The red buds. These are ornamental magnolias. Here, this one again. I've noticed this too on a lot of shrubs and trees in the area. These are frost, evidence of frost. Okay, I lost a lot of pawpaws with a late frost we had here in this area. So this is what remains. This reconstruction was relatively recent, I'd say within the last 5 years. And again, this used to be off limits. This was private property. Here was obviously would have been a grand stone deck out here. And those are rhododendrons in full bloom below us right now. They're beautiful. Quite beautiful, different varieties. My only beef with that is almost all of those rhododendrons right there are not native. They're ornamental rhododendrons, probably Asian rhododendrons, perhaps some European ones mixed in. Our rhododendrons here, our native rhododendrons, won't bloom for a few weeks, most likely. And ours are also not that color. But a really beautiful spot. All right, so we're gonna now, after we leave this area, I don't know how much more I'll film until I get the whole way to Benoit Lake, the lake itself, which again was built in the 60s. So this house was built in the 60s, the lake was dammed up in the 60s, and it existed here until not that long ago. Now you notice there is some, modern furniture and everything here, right? And this is part of the park district. This occasionally, you can see, has lit fires in it, and they do programming and things like that, and guided hikes and so forth. So this is Green Mansions. Okay. Just to the left of the mansion, as you're standing on the deck, is this little path that would have taken you to the lake, which is down in that direction, but you're no longer allowed to walk that way. You have to walk back around the way I came and head down to the dam area. So that's what we're gonna do. But before we do that, here's another neat spot here. It's been all refurbished. I guess these were storage bins or like a shed. Just beautiful sandstone blocks. All this is hand-hewn stuff. Just incredible. There's some big chunks up there too. All right, it's all nicely put back together. I don't know how much of this was original, how much was refurbished, new stuff that was produced in the same style. I don't know, but it's really cool. And that's all sandstone here. Black hand sandstone. Very nice. I've made my descent, and I want to point out before I show you where I am that this walk is pretty easy. You do rise and fall a little bit, but the trail is basically a road because this was private property. They drove on it. People still drive on it for maintenance. So it's a really easy, flat trail, although you do have to go uphill initially, but you come back down and it's a flat walk back. But let's take a look at where we are. Here's the lake. This is Lake Emily. Quite peaceful, secluded. There's the answer to our questions. The Green Mansions lasted till 1992. Okay, as a private estate. This is an earthen dam. Looks quite adequate. I did a episode on the Johnstown flood of 1889, and this one seems pretty sturdy relative to what they dealt with there. Here's a nice secluded lake. We're only, not even an hour south of Columbus here. And this is just about as secluded as you could get. Peaceful. I heard a great blue heron as I approached the lake initially. And I see largemouth bass cruising by in the water. Let's go down there and take a look. As I walked in, I met one guy who was fishing. He didn't have much luck, but I can see bluegills and largemouth bass in the lake. Very calm today. Oh, there he is. It's a big one. See if I can get him on camera. Probably not. Yeah, probably 6 feet in front of me is a 18-inch largemouth bass. I guess he didn't want what that guy was offering. Let's poke around. I see some activity of muskrats. So this kind of activity right here with mud pulled up and plant clippings and things like that, that's evidence of muskrats. No beaver activity, which is sort of surprising to me at the moment. Let's go take a look at the spillway. Here's the trail back will take us like that, down the creek back to Clear Creek. I guess while I'm just killing time, Clear Creek's about 5,300 acres. It's managed by the Columbus and Franklin County Metro Parks, even though it's in Fairfield County, and I think partially in Hocking County. So it's a little bit southeast of Lancaster. Here's some more spots where muskrats are doing their thing. Pulling up dirt like that. Some more spots. This is fresh, so they were working here not that long ago, and this could be associated with some of their underground tunnels. I see mussel shells out there. That's interesting to me, that there would be mussels in this small tributary. There clearly are, and something's been feeding on them. There's one right here. So that's a native Ohio mussel. I couldn't tell you at all what species. Of course, Ohio, our small rivers and streams are known for their mussel diversity. So mussels usually aren't in really small streams though, so maybe the stream over here is bigger than I think. But there's clearly mussels here, and that's something like a raccoon or an otter or a mink. Get a hold of these things, break them open, and eat the contents. That's what I would do if I was one of those things myself. The signs say, by the way, that you can only fish in the lake from the dam. You're not allowed to go anywhere around the border of the lake. You also cannot swim, launch a canoe, or any type of flotation device. Here's some more muskrat activity. Muskrats, in some sense, are like tiny beavers. They do make little houses, but usually out of herbaceous vegetation and not wooden sticks. I see they've dragged some sticks around here, but these piles are from muskrats. Every good dam has to have a spillway or an overflow, or your dam is at risk. So here it is. See some fish in there. There's a bluebird box. No one home. The concrete spillway. Looks very well constructed, now that I'm a dam expert because of the Johnstown flood episode. Well, folks, I'm going to perch here for a little bit before I continue my journey back, and I'll check back in with you in just a little bit. Well, downstream, not far from the dam, is another dam, a beaver dam. So although I commented I didn't see beaver activity in the lake itself, certainly is occurring just downstream here. It's a really nice wild-like beaver meadow here. It's a pretty hefty dam and a beaver meadow. There might be even additional dams down the way. But yeah, very nice. That's clearly been maintained by them. Birds are always hard to capture with this GoPro, but I have a Baltimore Oriole right in front of me. And I've been hearing wood thrushes, seeing some warblers, just, you know, robins, cardinals, all the standard. But there's all kinds of bird activity, hairy woodpeckers. And this, I am not able to get it on camera really. But certainly bird activity always abounds. It's just hard for me to capture that on this GoPro. Here's witch hazel, and it's displaying these little red bumps on the leaves associated with a vein. And what those red bumps are galls caused by aphids. So a single aphid mother will initiate that gall, and this structure will grow. It's like a little dimple, like a little pimple, pyramid. And inside of it, she'll start to have babies, parthenogenetically. So no mate required. And all those aphids will occupy that little shelter and feed on the sap coming through that vein to the gall while they're young. And so that's a galling aphid, witch hazel galling aphid. The originator is called a foundatrix, the one that founds the gall, and then she gives birth, live birth, to every member of the colony afterward. Here's just an example of the trail back to the parking area. I've paralleled the little tributary to Clear Creek that forms Benwa Lake. I've been greeted by squirrels and chipmunks along the entire walk, but this is a really pleasant walk. Beautiful forest, peaceful, secluded. I saw one person on the trail, and this was a Saturday afternoon. And so I think this is probably as good a place as any to conclude this episode. So until next time, this is Don signing off from Clear Creek Metro Park. See you next time. Bye-bye.